Growing up and out of the cut, I still couldn't shake some of its effects, which made me a very prudish person, and I would often avoid any adverse attention from most girls who thought I was available. You may recall for a fact, I used to leave the clubs with girls and tell the lads that I spent the night with them, when actually I went straight home as soon as they were out of sight. But on one occasion, I made the mistake of inadvertently flirting with the wrong girl, the croupier. We'll come on to that in a second.
Hey, Blue Eyes.
I was too busy getting high and partying with the lads to be interested in romance. Furthermore, I was now constantly doing fat shedding drugs on a regular basis. Mindful, I had no fat to shed. I was the thinnest I'd ever known. Consequently, I was more body conscious than I'd ever been. And it had been some time since I let a girl in too close. There were girls, several in fact, Karen and Dolly and Stella, and what a lineup. Sounds like a geriatric girl band. But as soon as I got too close, I moved on. Apart from the croupier, her name was Callie. I had an ulterior motive, which had absolutely nothing to do with her or my body, or me unloading this skinny body for the benefits of another, more particularly her. In fact, surprisingly, I was ready to commit to this girl, and would have stayed with her as long as it was financially possible. Let me tell you why. We'd met in a nightclub called The Drone, but it was fleeting. The next time I saw her, she was in the casino, conspicuously slipping me her phone number.
Call me.
Let me be clear here. I wasn't, and the lads, we weren't gamblers, although occasionally we would waste a tenner. We could attend the casino after the nightclub, the attraction, free fizzy drinks, sandwiches, whilst we waited for our taxi. But unfortunately, this girl, Callie, was so taken with me. She soon wondered if I was with her. On the quiet, I was not, until I realised quite literally she had an ace up her sleeve, which kept me well and truly on her love hook. As a croupier, she could land the ball on the roulette within any third she wanted, 7 to 8 times out of 10. Let me explain. You can place your chips on any number, but at the side there's options where you have black or red, odd or even, or in this case any third, 1 to 12, 13 to 24, 25 to 36, and by placing her dolly in a certain way before spinning, which was usually used to confirm the number the ball had landed on, Callie would secretly signal which third she was going to attempt to land it in. Effectively, it pays out 3 to 1. I would go in with a tenner, and I'd leave with 100 quid, which at that time, that was big money to me. However, I soon realised Callie was married, albeit separated, and he was also a croupier, but still in love with her, fighting for his marriage. On one occasion, Callie had made the mistake in one of their fights, telling him she was now with me, and that was the end of her marriage. We hadn't even kissed at this point. One particular night, Shake Hands Lee and Dave gone to the casino. As they were leaving, waiting outside, they were cornered as several or more croupiers tried to rough them up, including her husband, with the message to me to stay away, otherwise I was getting it. It resulted in the lads turning up en masse. That night, the casino came to an abrupt halt. It was like something out of a movie. Security had to call in the police, and all the triads were kicking off because they wanted to carry on gambling. And we were giving it large to the croupiers, well, at least the lads were. I just attended. Whilst none of us were arrested, we scarfed just as the police arrived, but we were all given a lifetime ban for the casino. And my source of ill-gotten income was no more. Callie soon realised I was only in it for the money. We can all pinpoint a time or a person in our lives, an influence, a crossroads even, which led us down a certain path, a decision we wish we could go back and change, or nostalgically relive, thankful as the choice set in motion who and what we became, instrumental in forming everything that is good in and about all our lives, or wishful thinking, if only we could go back and change what we set in motion, who we became and what we became, When life goes well, we survive against the odds. Some say someone up there is looking out for me. But what do they say when things turn out bad? One very significant friend landed smack bang in the middle of my teenage crisis. Let me be clear here. I'd always been as thin as a rake. And I was very slow to fill out, if at all, because of my constant abuse of speed, ecstasy and Class A drugs. I mean, I was thinner than I'd ever been, but it was giving me a serious complex. And massively knocking my confidence. I also started to fear my surroundings more, particularly after the episode in the casino. I thought if I was to stand any chance in any fight of protecting myself, I needed to put on body mass. I would also comment that I would avoid most romantic connections because I was scared to reveal this thin body, partly because of the cult and sin and sex outside of marriage. I was so fed up with the way I looked. But even after copious amounts of protein powders, regularly going to the local authority gym, nothing changed. That was until the day I met the Marine. He was a bodybuilder. And the students at the college I attended, I called him the Marine because later that's what he became in his successful attempt to escape the Liverpool underworld that I became so trapped in, and partly because of him. Upon first meeting him and after several months, I said to the Marine, "How did you get that big?" Initially, he wasn't forthcoming, but when I told him I was thinking of taking steroids, the Marine introduced me to his best mate, Stevie, who was even bigger than him, and interestingly would become one of my partners in crime. We called him the Fox. I mean, these meatheads started taking me to their gym. I was now training properly. What I soon realised is their choice of gym was the same for all major gangsters in South Liverpool, those that didn't want to kill each other. The Fox and the Marine were known. So oddly, I was quite quickly accepted within these underworld circles. Soon I started injecting steroids. I'd put on 3 stone of muscle, had stretch marks, I looked like an absolute Adonis. That's what I looked like, and that's what I became. I was spending more time with these 2 new friends who were mixing it with Liverpool's underworld. Mr. Big, he trained in the gym we started going to. He invited us to a nightclub he held the door and gave us a walkover, otherwise known as a free pass, that night. We saw him and another drag this drug dealer kicking and screaming into the toilet. He taxed him, which meant they had taken all his drugs, roughed him up and exited him from the club. The 50 or so ecstasy tablets taxed were passed to us, and agreed to sell the rest on the basis our mate on the door, Mr. Big, got half of the sale proceeds. Sold like hotcakes in less than 30 minutes. And we made £500. The only problem, when it got around the club, we were selling Garys. We soon realised we could have sold another 500 just as quick. So we partied.
Back to Future. Back to Future.
This was exciting. Unfortunately, it was the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong people. On this very night, a simple night out with the lads doing what we loved, opened the door that I could not close. This unsuspecting night ushered in my unwholesome, hellish descent into Liverpool's underworld as a participant. This was the night I became an accidental gangster.
We were invited to an evening with Mr. Big.
He wanted to discuss how we turned 50 tablets into £500 in less than 30 minutes. Could we replicate that night, but with more tablets? Were we interested? Hell yeah, was the collective response. The offer? Mr. Big would supply the drugs, protection, and we would have full control of the club. All he wanted was 50% of the sale proceeds. This club was the #1 club in Liverpool and fast becoming the #1 club in the country. So we would have the rich pickings of 2,000 clubbers every Saturday night. Why did we accept Mr. Big's offer without a second thought? We didn't even sleep on it. Did we really know what we were getting into? Or were we blinded by the thrill and enhanced reputation? The deception didn't even feel like we were breaking the law. We weren't hanging around on street corners or in the shadows. Not only had we dealt a Class A drug that first night, but we were now conspiring to do the same. Possession threatened a prison term of 5 years, actual supply 7 years, sold as a one-off, and 10 years for what we were about to do, sell again and consistently, and in the eyes of the law it was called conspiracy. Previously I'd been so cautious. What had made me become so indifferent, if not passive, to these consequences? What fueled the complete ignorance of risk of this false sense of security? Pissed off. Taking drugs had become normal. I was doing it every day. And Mr. Big's business proposal came with fringe benefits. We would have an exclusivity over the club to sell with the full protection of the door. Furthermore, we would not be carrying drugs 24/7. We would effectively take delivery the same day we sold them in the club, and then leave drug-free, cash-rich. This seemed an absolute no-brainer, and almost risk-free. Furthermore, it was not like selling heroin to addicts who had just robbed whoever to get a fix. Ecstasy was not addictive. We were selling to the middle class, professionals, posh people, rich students. In this club, there was no big house ninjas. This was a strict dress code, and at the most expensive club in Liverpool to gain entry. If there had been any reticence or resistance, the deal was ultimately sealed when we realised this was a promotion, and being a drug dealer carried a certain amount of underworld prestige within the circles we now mixed with. We were not only firmed up, but we were now made men. As a made man, in the space of 3 years, I'd gone from a malnourished, morose, insecure boy struggling to break puberty, afraid of my shadow, to an utter specimen of a man with hair like a rock star, money to burn, dressed to impress with a killer reputation.
Feared because of who I knew.
This was the best I'd ever felt. More superficial, because deep inside, nothing had really changed. Although I didn't have time to think about that boy that was once me. However, for this season of my life, I forgot the past. I revelled in the present. I was on top of the world, defined by my circumstances. I was relevant, I was popular, I was part of something much bigger than I could ever imagine. My ego was being fueled like no other time before. Finally, I had an ego. The way I felt, I would have almost said yes to Mr. Big and dealt his drugs for free. The fringe benefits were just too attractive. In all honesty, on that night Mr. Big made that offer, I said yes without absolutely no thought of the consequences. I was sure, whatever the risk, it wouldn't happen to me. Famous last words. I was sworn in. It was official. I was a drug dealer and a gangster, a significant cog in Mr. Big's drug dealing machine. This following Saturday would be the night this enterprise would be launched, and it arrived. But was I ready?